Okay, so it's time for us to go ahead and dive back into our coverage over the X-Men. And with us doing that, we're going to pick up with Uncanny X-Men issue number 337. Now, we're only covering 2 issues for today, but this is really more like the true epilogue for the Onslaught event. I know our last video, I basically said it's labeled as the Onslaught epilogue, but for me, that was just the end. That was the last chapter for the main event. For me, these next 2 videos are truthfully the epilogue for the entire event. But either way, we do pick up with Wolverine and Charles Xavier. And the reason why I like this conversation because it's Charles Xavier trying to be that loner that Logan used to be. And so it's Logan realizing what Charles is trying to do. It's him right now trying to just shut out the world around him. Now, for me personally, I'm kind of like Charles Xavier is at fault for what exactly happened when it came to Onslaught. You could argue no, it was Charles Xavier and Magneto's fault. But at the same time, it was Charles who decided to shut down the mind of Magneto, where of course he did absorb the darker side of Magneto's mind into his mind, which of course created Onslaught. But either way, it's Charles kind of blaming himself for what he did. He's like, hey, it's my fault the world, really New York City, got completely wrecked. That Franklin Richards no longer has his parents. That the Avengers, the Fantastic Four, they're all gone at the moment. And that right there is my fault. Quicksilver is downstairs right now feeling sad because his wife and his sister have both just disappeared. Because at the end of our last video, the Avengers, Inhumans, Fantastic Four, they all went into Onslaught and disappeared. Now we already know they went over to the Heroes Reborn universe. But this was Marvel also kind of okay, cool. Even though we had just wrapped up one event, it's time for us to go ahead and get ready for the next one because it's the X-Men. In the 90s, they were Marvel's most popular property. And so you have them right now working their way up to Operation Zero Tolerance. We pick up with Bastion getting ready to go after the X-Men because what happened in New York can never happen again when it comes to the mutant race. And so it's him right now saying we got to go ahead and get rid of these mutants. And technically, he's not the only one trying to use what happened with Onslaught as a way to say, you know what, it's time to get rid of the mutant race. Because we do pick up with Graydon Creed. Now remember, Graydon is the son to Mystique and also Sabretooth, but he came out human, not a mutant. But either way for Graydon, his main goal right now, like I said, is to get rid of the mutants. But he's running for president. And so he's just standing where Onslaught was, where the battle took place. He's kind of look around. Look at what the mutants did. How in the world can we accept this? This is not okay. They gotta go. Now, Spider-Man, he's there because, one, he does work for the Daily Bugle, but also kind of he needs these pictures, but it's also him kind of showing us that he is a hero. He understands what exactly happened when it came to Onslaught, what came to heroes who had disappeared. But for Graydon, he's right now trying to spin it in a way where it's you need to vote for me so I can promise you that this will never happen again. And we do kind of switch over to the Daily Bugle. And we pick up with J. Jonah Jameson and also Robbie Robertson. Now, for these 2 characters, they're watching Graydon on live TV give his speech, right? Now, for JJ, he kind of feels like there's something special about Graydon Creed. Now, at first, it does kind of seem like he's on Graydon's side, but it's kind of he wants to know more about Graydon Creed. He wants to bring out the truth about the man because he kind of realized that Graydon is very serious about the fact of getting rid of the mutant race. And so this begins JJ trying to figure out what is the actual truth backstory for Graydon Creed. But now we kind of switch over to the X-Men, starting off with Cyclops. And for Cyclops, it's kind of him being the first X-Men is also this is the first person who has to begin the process of a new beginning for the X-Men because it all began with him and Charles Xavier. And so you have Cyclops getting up but kind of realizing that this is going to be a huge adjustment for him and also for the rest of the X-Men because, again, the person they trust the most, Charles Xavier, turned evil, created this powerful being known as Onslaught, wrecked New York, got rid of the Avengers, got rid of the Fantastic Four. Like, he did a lot of damage. But for Cyclops, he looks at Charles as his father, like most of the X-Men do. But this whole entire event did not just only affect Cyclops. There were other characters who were also affected by this event. Like, for example, Beast. Man, I feel bad for Beast. But for Beast, remember, before the whole event kicked off, he was kidnapped by his evil counterpart from the other reality, better known as Age of Apocalypse. And so for Beast, it was also him trying to adjust to the fact that, like, he was replaced by somebody else. And unfortunately, most of the X-Men were unable to figure out that Beast was not really, well, Beast. But it's him being happy with the fact that he's back with his friends. He now has the ability to be with them again and rebuild that bond with them all over again. Now, I had mentioned this character earlier who was truly affected by the events of Onslaught, and that would be Quicksilver, because yes, even though his father had returned, Magneto at this point, he lost the Scarlet Witch and also Crystal, his wife and his sister. They both left into Onslaught, into a brand new reality, as we all know, Heroes Reborn. And so now for Quicksilver, it's just him and his daughter. And so this is kind of like Marvel saying, let's go ahead and backtrack on this character. And the reason why I'm saying that because there was a point in time where Quicksilver was part of X Factor. Like, he was really close with all the X characters for a good period of time in the early 1990s. But then out of nowhere, he was moved away from all the X books. It's now Marvel saying, let's go ahead and backtrack and put the man back in the X books all over again. We also kind of get that moment where you have Psylocke arrive. Now, when Psylocke does arrive, it's kind of hinting at the possibility that, like, there's something different about her. Because remember, when it came to Sabretooth, he almost killed her. But you had Archangel and Wolverine being able to give her the Crimson Dawn. So it kind of left to wonder, like, how has that truly affected her? Now, the rest of the first chapter that we are covering is really more of us just kind of seeing Wolverine telling us, or really reminding us, that when it comes to Charles Xavier, he lost his powers thanks to his battle against Onslaught. So it's also Marvel trying to do something new and different with the character of Charles Xavier, but also with the entire X-Men team. But it's Charles truthfully going to shut himself away from the rest of the X-Men, the people that he had brought into his lives who look at him as a father figure. And so you do have Logan leave. And so to close on the last few pages of the storyline, we really do pick up with the X-Men coming together for breakfast. Now, here's the thing, because, okay, these last 3 pages are really important also for the character known as Gambit, really Gambit, Rogue, and Magneto. And let me explain, because in the Onslaught crossover, for Rogue, she kind of went back and forth. You know, there was a point in time where it seemed like, okay, she's going to leave him behind and move on to Magneto. But then there was one point where it did seem like she had forgiven Gambit and might go back with him. But right now, it's Magneto trying to adjust to the idea of living with the X-Men again, because again, for this Magneto, he does not remember anything from his past life prior 3 months ago. And so for him, he's just kind of lonely. And so for Rogue, she feels bad for him and she's right now with him. And for Gambit, he shows that he is truthfully jealous. But either way, the ending of this chapter is really more of the X-Men coming together for breakfast and kind of like being able to have a new start in their lives. But when we transfer over to X-Men issue number 57, we're really kind of getting into that idea of you having Marvel remove Charles Xavier. And the reason why I'm saying that, because we pick up with Charles Xavier right now in the room with Cerebro Izette. And when it comes to Cerebro, it's Charles asking it like, I need you to locate Charles Xavier or Professor X. And the problem is, it can't. And so it really shows that right now for Charles Xavier, he's basically powerless. And this right here kind of makes him realize that maybe he should just go ahead and begin to move away from the X-Men. But this kind of gets into the major point of this video. And the reason why, because you do have Val Cooper arrive. Now for Val Cooper, she works for the government. Really, she works for X Factor as well. But her main goal is to kind of like build relations between the government and also the mutant race. And so any mutant affairs, she has to handle it. And so it's her right now arriving at the school of Charles Xavier. And she's there to arrest Xavier. Like, hey, I gotta bring him in. Now, for Cyclops, Wolverine, Bishop, Cannonball, Iceman, really most of the guys on the X-Men team, they're kind of like, you can't do that. But for her, she's kind of like, I don't have a choice here. Like, we saw what just happened not too long ago when it comes to Charles Xavier losing control of his abilities. Like, what if there's a possibility that could happen again? And that time around, we're not really able to win. Like, what if he becomes Onslaught? Because if he does, we have less heroes on the board to actually handle that kind of situation. And so for her, she does have a good reason. But for the X-Men, they also believe like we have a good reason. Like, hey, he made a mistake, we're going to move on. That's their actual reason. But then you have Storm arrive. Now for Storm, she realized that Val Cooper is right. Like what he did is crazy. Like the Avengers are gone. The Fantastic Four are gone. Like really, half the heroes of the Marvel Universe at this point in time have been officially removed off the board. But then we got to put that on a pause. And the reason why, because now we have to transition over to Beast. Now, this is Beast meeting up with, of course, Trish Tilby. Now, for Trish Tilby, she was the long-term girlfriend for Beast when it came to like late X-Men, going to X Factor and all that stuff. Now, here's the thing though. She is a reporter. And so they broke up because of that. Because basically she told the world about the legacy virus. As we all know, the legacy virus is going around killing off mutants left and right. Now, supposedly the virus had evolved and now going after humans as well. And so it was her who told the world like, hey, listen guys, there's this virus that the mutant race and the government has been hiding from us that's going around right now, killing off mutants, but also killing off humans. But originally, it was only going after the mutant race. And so for Beast, he felt betrayed in the fact that she told the world about that virus. But as Beast kind of realizing that maybe he went a little too far, breaking up with her and stuff. And so it's him right now trying to reestablish their relationship, hoping to get back and falling in love again and be a couple. But now we have to jump back over to the X-Men. Now, when we do, it's now time for Jean Grey to talk. Now, for Jean Grey, when she talks, she's kind of like, listen, you guys have to understand where Val Cooper is coming from. Like there is a possibility of Charles turning into Onslaught all over again. But it's Jean Grey also telling us and reminding us that she was there at the very beginning of the crossover in the mind of Charles Xavier. She was the first one to figure out like, okay, Charles is Onslaught and we are screwed. Like she saw the whole mental breakdown of Charles Xavier. But it's also Val Cooper showing like all these different news report about what happened when it came to the Onslaught event. People died. People lost their homes. People lost a lot of things thanks to him turning into Onslaught. And so as Val Cooper saying, I'm trying to prevent that from happening. But also right now, the relation between mutants and humans is at an all-time new low. Like right now, we might see an actual war between the two parties. But once again, we got to put that on the back burner. And the reason why, because now we switch over to J. Jonah Jameson. Now, this is JJ meeting up with Bastion. In the last chapter, we saw at first where it kind of seems like maybe JJ's on Graydon's side, Graydon Creed's side, but now it kind of shows like, no, he realized there's something bigger going on with Graydon Creed. And so for JJ, he wants to expose Graydon. But for Bastion, we can't have that. And so it's Bastion saying like, I need you to stop. I need you to stop yourself from trying to expose anything about Graydon Creed. But it's JJ saying like, dude, there's no way I'm going to stop. There's no way you can make me stop. Now, as we all know, there is a way. But for JJ, he ain't going to stop. Now, as we do switch back over to the school again, we now get Magneto involved. Now, for Magneto, at this point in time, he's going with the name Joseph. But for Val Cooper, she's surprised the X-Men allow Magneto to stay. But technically, he has nowhere to go because, again, he does not remember anything from his past prior to 3 months ago. And so for Magneto, with him being there, she's kind of like, okay, that's huge. But also it's him saying, like, if you're going to take Charles Xavier, you should also take me. Now, that is why I say, like, you could technically argue and say it's both Charles and Magneto's fault. But at the same time, we all could say that it's just Charles' fault because Charles was the one who did shut down the mind of Magneto, where, of course, he did absorb the darker side, the darker thoughts of Magneto into his mind. And so it's kind of like, can you really blame Magneto for having a part in the creation of Onslaught, or technically just blame Charles for the whole entire thing? But that is when you have Charles Xavier arrive. Now, when Charles arrives, he's like, everybody stop. Like, everyone just stop. Like, we have to realize that me, Charles Xavier, at fault for what had happened in New York. And matter of fact, even things leading up into the crossover, I have to take full on responsibilities for those actions as well. Because for a good while there, you had Marvel just drop small hints of Onslaught here, Onslaught there. And it's kind of like, okay, who is Onslaught? What is Onslaught? But the entire time it was Charles Xavier. So it's not just him, saying like, hey, I have to answer what I did in the crossover. I have to answer for everything I did prior to the big event in New York City. And so now it's him saying, let me go. Let me go with Val Cooper because I did a lot of things wrong. So just like that, Charles Xavier has been officially arrested and taken away. But this kind of leads us into the ending of the storyline where we're now picking up with Psylocke going to home of Archangel. Now, for that couple right there, they have been struggling for a tad bit. The problem is that when she does get back home, she can't find him. He is completely missing. And so we're kind of left to wonder, where in the world is Archangel? And this is where we're going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, see y'all next time. Later.